Confrontation. Present day. Four admired the view of the city from the penthouse office on the 19th floor, especially at night when it was like looking at a luxurious sea full of stars. The campaign celebration had ended hours ago, so he basked at the moment with a glass of Louis XVI. A face he hadn't seen in years appeared behind him in the reflection of the window. He knew that face all too well. It was a face he shared. People could assume they were twins or that his brother was him. How long had it been? "Hello, one," Four said. "Brother," one replied. Four sighed, then took the seat behind his desk. Brown leather was the only thing that ever made him feel comfortable. He placed his glass on the black coaster, then pulled out another coaster in glass. He opened the bottle of Louis XVI and hovered it above the glass. "Drink?" he asked. "I'm not here to fraternize," one said. "I know why you're here, one," Four said as he put away the liquor. Four touched a button on his desk. From behind the sleek mahogany wood panels that made up a wall, revealed a 72-inch flat-screen television. Four flipped through the channels. All of them showed that Four's public identity, John Buchanan, had won the presidential election. Four pressed another button, and the television withdrew back behind the wall. "I always had a feeling you would come for me. I knew you'd survived, but after all these years, I assumed you perished," Four said. "If you know why I'm here, why play nice, brother?" one asked. Four scoffed, almost letting out a chuckle. "Tell me, one. How'd you find me?" "Two." Four nodded, then reached into his desk to pull out a cigar and lighter. He sparked the cigar, inhaled, then blew the smoke in one's face. "Figures," he said. "There's no other way you could have found me, and I assume you killed all my men to get to me?" "No," one replied. "Oh, that's right. You only murder your own." Part 2. Pyromancer. 10 years ago. Screams filled the facility as the burnt bodies of the security guards simmered on the facility floor. Seven smiled at his work, happy he had finally been able to use his powers. Four and the others waited by the exit for him to finish off the rest, but one protected the other doctors, nurses, and staff from Seven's flames. "Get out of the way, one!" Four yelled. "This isn't right," one said. "You promised no one would get hurt." "As soon as we get to the surface, they will come after us. We need to end this before it even starts," Four said. Dr. Childress stood behind one, quivering in fear but wanting to protect his staff. "Please," he said, "let the staff go. They're just people doing their jobs. If anyone must be hurt, let it be me." Four led the others out of the building. "You can't do this," one yelled. Nine looked back as she left, but turned away upon catching one's gaze. "Roast them," Four said. Seven's smile became a grimace as the flames he controlled grew around his hands. Four followed behind the rest of his siblings as two led them toward the stairs that would take them to the surface. Nine stopped, pulling Four to the side as the others kept going. "What is it, Nine?" Four asked. "Is this necessary?" she said. "One should be coming with us." "Yes, it is necessary. By protecting them, one is putting his own needs before us." "I don't believe that." She placed a hand on his shoulder, looking into his eyes. Four looked away. "They must pay for what they did to you," he said. "For what they did to 8. Six appeared from the corridor. He saw Nine's hand on Four's shoulder and looked at them quizzically. "Two found the exit," Six said. "Let's go." We're coming, 4 replied. 9, you go back with 6. I'll go get 7. And 1? She asked. And 1. 7 blasted the flames emitting from his hands at 1. 1 dodged, and the flames caught a scientist behind him. She screamed as Dr. Childress and the others worked to put out the flames. 1 lunged at 7 and tackled him to the ground. "Stop this!" 1 demanded as he pinned 7's hands to the ground. "You're on the wrong side," 7 said. 1 punched 7, a right hook followed by a left hook, but 7 blocked. 7 countered, slapping 1 across the face with a fireball. 7 jumped back to his feet. A smile grew on his face as fire engulfed his hands. He blasted the flames at the group of scientists, but 1 jumped in front of them, taking the blast to the chest. "Stop protecting them!" 7 yelled. 1 fought through the pain as he stood up to face 7. "They don't need to die for us to live," 1 said. "It's either them or us, 1. "It doesn't have to be." 7 fired a stream of fire. "Get back!" 1 yelled to the scientists. They all ran and hid behind their desks. 1 dodged the flames, but it followed him. He flipped a table onto its side, then hid behind it, using it to block the flames. "If I have to kill you to get to them, I will," 7 yelled. 1, Dr. Childress called from behind a table across the room. "He is not going to listen to you." 1 ignored him. The table began to melt, and as it did, he broke a leg off. Without looking, 1 hurled it at 7. The flames stopped. 1 came from behind the desk, and 7 stood there with the leg impaled in his chest. "Brother," 1 said. "I didn't mean to." 7 looked at the piece of metal in his chest, then looked up at 1. Confusion, followed by anger, washed over 7's face in a split second. Then he fell to the ground, dead. 4 stood there in the doorway, his eyes wide in disbelief. Tears started to well, and his face turned red. He looked at 1. 1 just stood there. "This didn't have to happen," 1 said. 4 didn't respond. He let out a howling scream, then raised his arms. The building quaked, and Dr. Childress and the others held on to each other. There was a loud cracking as the walls and ground began to rip apart. 4 brought his hands down, and when 1 looked up, the roof was collapsing. Part 3. Sides. Present day. "You dare call me a murderer after what you did?" 1 said. 4 blew smoke into 1's face, then took another sip of his drink. With the wave of his hand, 4 summoned a seat to 1 and motioned him to sit. 1 ignored it. "From what I remember, 7's blood is on your hands. 7's death was an accident I caused in self-defense. It still haunts me." "Self-defense?" 4 scoffed. "That's what you call killing our brother? Self-defense would have been letting Childress and all those good-for-nothing scientists rot in hell." 4 took another drag from his cigar as 1 went on. "And how much blood have you spilled to finance this campaign? Manipulating hundreds of people into thinking you're this John Buchanan?" 1 said. "We've all spilled blood," 4 said. "Life wasn't easy after we left the facility. We had to fend for ourselves. I killed to survive and protect my siblings, unlike you. This is what you call survival?" 1 said as he gestured to the suite. The suite door burst open, and a group of armed men swarmed inside. They aimed large guns with red dots at 1. Many of them had bruises and cuts on their faces, or their clothes were ripped and tattered. "Put your hands in the fucking air," a large black man said with his gun aimed right at 1's head. "I see you didn't kill my men after all," 4 said. "I'm not a murderer," 1 said.
Captain Manuel, are you okay?
Fine, sir, Captain Manuel replied. He walked up to one, then placed the barrel of his gun against one's head. With your permission, Captain Manuel said, I'd like to leave this asshole's brains all over the floor.
That won't be necessary, Four said. This is my brother, James. Ex-military, like you.
Four waved a hand for the men to leave.
He was just putting my security up to the test. Now, if you'll excuse us, my brother and I have much to discuss.
With all due respect, he attacked federal agents. I have to arrest him.
Captain, please. I'll double all your pay for the inconvenience. Now leave us.
The captain pushed his gun against one's head, then holstered it. He circled for his men to leave the room, and they followed him out. As soon as they left, Four waved a hand at the door, and it closed and locked itself. It's that easy for you to lie to them? One asked.
Yes,
Four replied. Just like how you lied to me? Just like how you lied to the world?
I'm a politician, One. It comes with the territory.
I know you, Four, One scoffed. You're not doing this for the people.
What I'm doing is securing my place as ruler of the free world. I am securing my future just like I did all those years ago when I buried you and the facility.
Four took a long drag from his cigar, inhaled, blew the smoke out into the air, and placed it on the ashtray. Smoke trailed from the end of it. He then took another sip from his cup.
Damn. After all this time, you haven't changed. Still choosing the wrong side. How could you protect them, One? After what they did to us. After what they did to Nine.
Part 4. Puberty. 10 years ago. In the middle of a white room with a mirror implanted on one wall next to the door, they sat in a circle. There were 8 of the siblings and Dr. Childress. An empty chair sat where 8 used to sit. Everyone sobbed, but one cradled 9 in his arms as she used a tissue to wipe away tears from her eyes.
Everyone, what happened to number 8 was tragic,
Dr. Childress said.
But after today, we must continue with our trials.
We need to leave, Four mumbled under his breath. He sat with his arms crossed, and his eyes locked on the doctor.
What was that, number 4?
Dr. Childress asked.
8 is dead because of you.
Four stood up.
This is all your fault. All these tests and trials, it broke her. It should be you laying in a pool of your own blood.
I understand why you're angry, number 4. But the test we did on your sister would not be enough to warrant self-harm. 8 had other issues going on with her that we did not predict.
Liar!
Four yelled. He stuck his hand out to the side, and his chair lifted from the ground. He pointed at the doctor, but before the chair moved, Dr. Childress pressed a button on his watch. The mechanical collar on Four's neck sent shockwaves through his body, causing him and the chair to plop to the ground. The others gasped, and one went to check on Four as he convulsed on the ground, groaning in pain. A moment later, the security team came in. They were 2 tall men in black suits. They each took Four by an arm and carried him out of the room.
Do you want us to put him in the hole, Doctor?
A guard asked.
That won't be necessary,
Dr. Childress said.
Just take him to his room. That will be all for now, everyone. Dismissed.
One followed after the security guards, but Dr. Childress stopped him.
I don't know why he gets so angry,
one said.
He knows you only want what's best for us.
It's okay, son,
Dr. Childress said.
His powers are getting stronger, and along with puberty, they will be affecting his emotions.
One sighed, but said nothing.
Get some rest, then check on him later,
Dr. Childress said.
9, I need you to come with me.
9 stopped as one left with the others. Yes, doctor? Nine said as she watched the others leave the room. The 2 security guards came back.
We are going to try something different to see if we can activate your powers,
Dr. Childress said as he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear.
Gentlemen, you may proceed.
Dr. Childress left Nine alone in the room with the 2 security guards. He watched from behind the two-way mirror as the 2 of them advanced on her. 4 barged into 1 and 2's room.
1, we need to talk,
he said. 1 was doing one-handed push-ups on the floor.
Almost done. Hold on.
2 sprung up from his bed at 4's sudden appearance.
He's done something to 9,
he said.
What are you talking about?
1 asked.
Dr. Childress,
4 said.
Haven't you noticed? She barely comes out of her room. Last time we ate dinner, she was quiet and had marks on her neck.
Maybe she's still sick. Maybe she's still sad about 8, 1 said.
No.
4 shook his head.
2, tell him.
The other day after our meeting, 2 began, Dr. Childress made 9 stay behind while the rest of us went back to our rooms.
Okay, what's your point?
1 asked. I went back to ask him something when I saw him lock the door and the security guards go in there with her. He watched as they did something to her.
They hurt her, I know it,
4 said.
You have to check on her. You're the only one she will talk to.
I don't believe it. This better not be a joke, 1 said.
Dr. Childress would never...
1, 2 interrupted. I probed them this morning with my trials. The restraint collar kept me from accessing some of their thoughts, and what I accessed was disturbing. They were having wild fantasies about 9. 1 left the room. When he approached 9's door, he knocked before easing it open.
9,
he said.
Are you okay?
She laid in bed, wrapped in her blankets, and curled in the fetal position. There was another bed in the room, but it was just a mattress with no blankets. 1 sat on the floor, resting his back against her bed. He brought his knees to his chest and wrapped his arms around them. He said nothing, but minutes later he felt a hand on his shoulder. 1, 9 said, sniveling. They raped me. Part 5. Truth. Present day. After 10 years, 1 had come back. He stood there in front of 4, wanting answers, but 4 had none. To 4, 1 would always be a traitor. 4 couldn't help but smirk at the thought of 1 threatening his reign. In the eyes of the people, John Buchanan was a savior, and that's all that mattered. There was an uncomfortable silence between the 2 of them before 1 finally spoke.
4, he said. My name is John Buchanan, 4 interrupted. I did what I did to protect my siblings. Those people deserved no mercy from us. Childress told me everything before he died, 1 said. He told the guards to do it. How dare you say his name to me? You know the truth, yet you still stand against me. You still fight for them. You buried me beneath the facility for 10 years. I saw Childress die. He begged me for forgiveness. And? Good riddance. They all got what they deserved.
4 grabbed his drink off the desk and turned to face the view.
No one deserves to die like that.
10 years ago. 9 was in the tunnel when the building started to shake, leaning on the wall to keep from falling over. 4 appeared from the other side, grabbed her by the arm, and pulled her towards the exit. Wait, she shook her arm free of his grasp. Where's 1 and 7?
They're not coming,
4 replied. There was a large crash and dust billowed from the facility into the tunnel. It swallowed and covered them from head to toe. What was that, 4? She asked. But he kept going, and she followed him.
He killed 7,
4 said. They arrived at the end of the tunnel. A ladder led up to the hatch where the others called to them. "Hey!" 6 called from above. "Did you guys feel that earthquake? Hurry up before there's another one." "You're lying," 9 said. "We must go back for them."
"He killed 7.
4 grabbed her by the shoulders.
"I crushed the facility with 1 inside. I had to, for our sakes."
9 dropped to her knees. Tears fell down her dust-filled face. 4 grabbed her, then lifted them both out of the tunnel. They landed on the surface, near where the others waited. Everyone surrounded them. "Where's 7? 1 tried to stop some of the building from falling on them, but he couldn't save them all. Screams were cut short as large chunks of roof crushed some of the personnel. He was brought down to his knees by a beam that struggled to crush him. Even with all his strength, he could barely hold it up.
1!
He heard someone cry out his name. It was like a whisper covered by the noise of the falling building. He scanned his surroundings until he found someone crushed by a pile of debris.
1!
Dr. Childress cried, choking on his own blood. His lower half submerged beneath the wreckage, and a metal pipe protruded from his chest. 1 choked on his vomit, and the part of the building he was holding promised to crush him.
"Hold on, Doctor,"
1 said.
4! Come back! Someone help!
1's call for help went unanswered. He wrestled with the weight of the building, but it had him pinned. If he moved wrong, he would be crushed. Blood spewed from Childress's mouth when he spoke.
1,
Childress said.
"It's all my fault.
Hold on, Doctor,"
1 said. He tried to force the weight up, but the weight of the building shifted and he lost his footing. He screamed when something pierced right through his leg, then dropped the beam he held up, causing everything to collapse on him.
Forgive me."
Dr. Childress's eyes rolled back while he let out his last.
"Childress, stay with me!"
1 yelled. Blood trickled around him as water sprinkled around him from busted pipes. 1 continued to cry out for Childress to answer, but there was no response. He screamed for what had seemed to be hours. The water rose, threatening to drown him, and every attempt to free himself failed. He laid, trapped beneath the ruins of the facility. Part 7. Purpose. Present day. 4 sat in his leather chair, back turned to 1, facing the city. The ice in his cup clattered as he swirled it around.
"I'm not surprised you survived,"
4 said.
"That's why they made you. To survive. To outlast them. To be better and stronger than they could ever be. Human evolution. They would use your genetics to cure diseases and restore limbs."
4 held out his empty cup. The bottle of liquor floated above it and poured.
"The rest of us were nothing more than their science experiments,"
he said.
"That's not true,"
1 said.
"Isn't it? 1, they treated you with reverence while they poked, prodded, and tormented us. They cared about us." "No, they didn't. We were their paycheck, and they had jobs to do."
4 stood up. He walked up and placed a hand on the window.
"Beautiful view, isn't it?"
4 sighed.
"The others and I did things many would consider horrible to make sure our lives would be better. We manipulated and murdered our way to power. Never again would we be anyone's science experiment. We swore on 7 and 8. We even swore on you. So you judge the whole of the group by the actions of a few?"
1 asked.
"Humans are vile beings,"
4 said.
"The others knew it. I just don't understand why you refuse to believe it." "I do believe it,"
1 confessed.
"I just always hoped for better."
Part 8. Goodbye. 10 years ago. 1, 2, and 4 were in the recreation area with a few of the scientists. They did their daily tests so that the results could be recorded. 1 ran on a treadmill, 4 lifted things with his mind, and 2 guessed the numbers in their mind. Yet, with their restraints collars on, they could only do so much.
"Something's wrong,"
2 said. He left the recreation room to enter the main corridor, closed his eyes, and waited.
Are you vibing something?
A scientist asked.
8,
he said.
"There's something—"
A scream echoed throughout the building. Everyone stopped what they were doing and came into the main area.
"What happened?"
4 asked. 2 dropped to the floor. Tears filled his eyes as he struggled to breathe.
1,
he said.
"Get to the restroom."
1 bolted for the second floor. He leaped over the stairs, getting to the restroom in a split second. As soon as he arrived, 9 ran out. She crashed right into him. Although she was in a towel, she was still soaking wet.
"Somebody help,"
she started to say before seeing 1.
1,
she said.
8, she's...
She started to cry, choking on words, unable to speak. 1 looked to the side and saw 6 coming up the stairs.
"Wait here,"
he nodded to 6, then went into the restroom. Steam filled the room from the still-running shower heads. He noticed a trail of blood that trickled towards the door from the showers. Through the glass shower door, he could see the silhouette of a body on the floor. He slid open the door to find 8, pale, panting, and bleeding from cuts on both her wrists. On the floor next to her was a bloodied kitchen knife. 1 grasped the shower to keep himself from fainting, then swallowed the pain. He grabbed a towel, then reached through the scalding water to cover and pick her up.
"No more pain now, brother,"
she said as he took her out of the restroom. By the time he left the restroom, he was covered in 8's blood. He sobbed while he carried her, motionless. Everyone gathered outside the restroom gasped upon seeing them.
"Oh, no,"
4 said. 9. Revelation. Present day. There was a stillness in the air, an awkward silence. 4 turned around to face 1, placing his glass on the desk.
"You know,"
he said,
"I could drink as much as I want and never get drunk. It is a fortunate side effect of having telekinesis."
"Your point?" 1 said.
"My point is that nothing and no one can stop me,"
4 said.
"This presidency is just the beginning of something larger. Soon, I will control the world."
A drawer opened. A 9mm handgun floated into the air, with its barrel pointed at 1.
"So, you would shoot me?"
1 asked.
"Why not have your men do it? They already failed to stop you once. No, this way I guarantee that you die. This is for 7.
1 slapped the gun out as it fired. The bullet missed and shot into the floor as the gun flung to the ground. 1 threw the chair next to him at 4, and it stopped mid-air and flung back towards him. He dodged the chair, and it flew right past him. He lunged over the desk, hands put to grab 4, but it lurched upwards. The desk slammed him into the roof, and 4 laughed.
"You thought you could come here and take me out?"
4 laughed.
"Please."
He walked over to the gun, picked it up, and aimed at 1.
"You never did tell me. How did you manage to escape?"
"Like this." 1 broke the desk in half. He slipped through the pieces, falling towards the floor. 4 fired a shot. The bullet grazed 1 on the shoulder as he fell. 1 landed on 4, knocking the gun away. He wrapped his hands around 4's neck and squeezed. 4 punched, grabbed, and pushed at 1, but 1 was too strong.
"No."
1 managed to get out. 1 continued to choke 4, but he felt something floating in the air behind him. 1 let go and rolled out of the way just as the gun fired. He stood to see a bullet lodged in 4's chest. The gun fell out of the air.
"I'm sorry it had to come to this,"
1 said. 4 choked and spit up blood that oozed from his mouth. He looked shocked, scared, and confused before his eyes rolled back into his head. He died. 1 turned to leave, finding the door to the suite already open. A young boy stood in the doorway, his eyes filled with tears.
"Father?"
He ran to embrace the body on the floor. 1 left. Last part. Autumn. 10 years ago. They agreed to have the meeting in the laundry room of the facility. The noises from the washers and dryers would hide their voices from anyone that passed by. 1 was led into the room by 6, 7, 2, and 4. They had told 9 about the meeting, but were unsure if she would show.
"What is this about?"
1 asked.
1, you have to break my restraint collar.
4 demanded. The others nodded.
For what?
4 looked at his brothers, and they nodded their approval.
We plan to escape,
he said.
What?
1 said.
Dr. Childress.
Fuck the doctor,
4 said. Fuck the staff, the security team, all of them. First 8 kills herself, then security guards rape 9. We need to get out.
4 removed his shirt, revealing a scrawny frame. On his neck sat a mechanical collar with a green light on the left side.
Look, 1,
7 said.
We don't need you to break all of ours. Just 4's. Then he'll do the rest. Are you all out of your mind?
1 said.
This is our home. Don't you care about what happens to us?
4 said.
Their testing gets worse every day. The needles, the probes, we're tired of it.
We all agree, 1, 2 said. I can barely touch their minds, but I don't see them letting us out anytime soon. If we don't leave now, we may all end up like 8.
Even if I wanted to,
1 said,
I may not be strong enough to break it. What if my collar keeps me weaker?
That's just an excuse, said 6. See, fellas, I told you he wouldn't do it. He loves being the doctor's pet.
Shut up, 6,
4 said. Come on, 1. How do I know you won't just turn around and harm the staff? 1 asked. You're so concerned about us hurting them. But what about them hurting us? 9 had entered the room without them knowing. 6 went over to help as she came in. She could barely stand on her own, so used 6 as a crutch to hold her up. 9, it's not like that, 1 said. Then tell me what it is like, she said, because I am the one in pain. 8 is dead, 1. Dead. The room grew quiet for a moment, as they waited for 1 to say something. What happens after I break your collar, 4? 1 asked.
We escape.